The morning sun cast long shadows across the Earth Defense Command Center as Captain Lee stood before the massive viewing screen. His hands were clasped behind his back and his face showed no emotion, but inside his heart was beating fast. The screen displayed something that had never been seen before in human history, a fleet of alien warships hanging in space. Just beyond the moon, the ships were enormous. Each one was at least 3 times the size of anything humanity had ever built. They were dark and sleek with strange blue lights pulsing along their hulls. The largest ship in the center was so big it looked like a small city floating in the void. Its surface was covered with weapon ports and shield generators that glowed with an ominous purple light. Captain Lee had been preparing for this moment for 5 years, ever since the first alien signals were detected by deep space monitors. He had studied every piece of data about these creatures called the Galactic Council. He knew they had conquered 47 different species across the galaxy. He knew they never showed mercy to those who resisted. He knew that today would decide whether humanity lived or died. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with nervous energy. Kim, the weapons officer, was checking and rechecking the targeting systems. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panels as she ran diagnostics on every weapon the ship carried. Park, the chief engineer, was monitoring the engine output and making sure all systems were running at peak efficiency. His face was covered in sweat despite the cool air in the command center. Yoon, the communications specialist, was listening to the alien transmissions, trying to understand their language and intentions. She had been studying their communication patterns for months, and now her knowledge would be put to the ultimate test. The aliens had been silent for the past hour, but she knew they were planning something. The Iron Phoenix hung in space, near Earth, looking small and fragile compared to the massive alien fleet. But Captain Lee knew appearances could be deceiving. His ship carried weapons and technology that the aliens had never encountered before. It was humanity's first and only hope against the overwhelming force that threatened their world. Suddenly, the main screen flickered and changed. A new image appeared showing the bridge of the alien flagship. The creature that looked back at them was tall and thin with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were black as space itself, and when it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical. "I am Commander Kang of the Galactic Council Fleet," the alien said. Its words were translated by the ship's computer, but the meaning was clear. "You are the species known as humans. Your planet Earth has been selected for integration into the Council Empire. You have 24 hours to surrender completely." Captain Lee stepped forward and activated the communication system. He looked directly at the alien commander and spoke in a calm, steady voice. "This is Captain Lee of the Earth Defense Force. We do not recognize your authority over our world. Humanity will never surrender to invaders." Commander Kang made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your species is young and foolish," he said. "You have primitive weapons and weak ships. You cannot hope to stand against the might of the Council. We have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours." The alien commander gestured with one of his 4 arms, and the screen split to show images of destroyed worlds, cities burning under alien bombardment, spaceships exploding in the void, entire populations fleeing in terror. "These are the worlds that chose to resist," Kang continued. "Their fate awaits you if you do not surrender." Captain Lee felt his crew tense behind him, but he kept his voice steady. "Show us what you want," he said. "We will consider your terms." The alien's black eyes seemed to gleam with satisfaction. "First, all human military forces must stand down immediately. Second, your government must dissolve and accept Council rule. Third, all human technology must be surrendered to Council scientists. Fourth, half of your population must be relocated to serve other Council worlds." The demands were exactly what Captain Lee had expected. The Council always made the same requirements from conquered species. They wanted complete submission and the destruction of everything that made humanity unique. It was not negotiation. It was domination. Behind him, Kim whispered, "Captain, our weapons are ready and all systems are green." Park nodded and said quietly, "The new engines are running perfectly. We can move whenever you give the order." Yoon looked up from her station and added, "The alien fleet is maintaining standard formation patterns, just like our intelligence predicted." Captain Lee studied the alien commander for a long moment. Then he made his decision. "We reject your terms," he said firmly. "Humanity will not bow to tyrants. We will fight for our freedom and our world." Commander Kang's expression did not change, but his voice grew colder. You have made a grave mistake, human. Your species will be eliminated as an example to others who might consider resistance. You have 24 hours to reconsider. When that time expires, we will begin the complete destruction of your world." Communication ended, and the screen returned to showing the alien fleet. Captain Lee turned to face his crew and saw determination in their eyes. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not survive. They were the best humanity had to offer, and they would not fail their species. Kim stood up from her station. "Captain," she said, "the alien ships are moving into attack formation. They are preparing their weapon systems." Park wiped the sweat from his face and reported, "All our systems are ready, Captain. The Iron Phoenix is ready for battle." Yun looked at the data streaming across her screens and said, "The aliens are broadcasting to their entire fleet. They believe this will be an easy victory. They think we will surrender or be destroyed quickly." Captain Lee walked to the center of the command bridge and looked out at the stars. His ship was small compared to the enemy fleet, but it carried the hopes and dreams of all humanity. He thought about his family back on Earth, about the billions of people who were counting on him to protect them. The Iron Phoenix was more than just a warship. It was a symbol of human determination and ingenuity. Every system had been designed and built by human hands. Every weapon had been tested and perfected by human minds. The aliens had superior numbers and bigger ships, but they had never faced anything like what humanity had created. Captain Lee activated the ship-wide communication system and spoke to his crew. "This is our moment," he said. "We knew this day would come and we are ready. The aliens think we are weak and primitive. They are about to learn how wrong they are." He looked at each member of his crew and saw their resolve. Kim checked her weapons one final time. Park made last-minute adjustments to the engines. Yun prepared the communication systems for battle. The Iron Phoenix hummed with power. As all systems came online, the alien fleet began to move forward, their massive ships blotting out the stars. Captain Lee took a deep breath and gave the order that would change everything. "All stations, prepare for combat," he commanded. "It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." The battle for Earth was about to begin. The Iron Phoenix moved through space like a predator stalking its prey. Captain Lee stood at the command center watching the alien fleet spread out in what they thought was an unbeatable formation. Commander Kang had positioned his ships in a classic Council attack pattern designed to overwhelm any enemy with superior firepower. The largest alien ships formed the center of their formation, while smaller vessels spread out on the flanks. Their weapons were already charging and their shields glowed with deadly energy. The aliens had used this same formation to conquer dozens of worlds, and they expected it to work against the humans too. But Captain Lee had studied every council battle for the past 5 years. He knew their tactics better than some of their own commanders. He watched calmly as the alien fleet moved exactly as he had predicted. They were following the same patterns they had used for centuries, never thinking that someone might have learned to counter them. Kim looked up from her weapon station. "Captain, the alien ships are almost in range. Their plasma cannons are fully charged and ready to fire. Should we raise our shields?" Captain Lee shook his head. "No shields," he said quietly. "We need every bit of power for the engines and weapons. Trust in our speed and the surprise we have prepared." Park frowned as he monitored the engine readings. "Captain, our hull cannot take a direct hit from those plasma weapons. If they target us without shields, we will be destroyed." "No," Captain Lee replied, "but they have to hit us first, and that is going to be much harder than they think." The alien fleet continued its advance, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Commander Kang stood on his bridge watching the small human ship with amusement. He had destroyed vessels 10 times larger than the Iron Phoenix, and he expected this battle to be over within minutes. Suddenly, the human ship disappeared from their sensors. Commander Kang stared at his screens in confusion. "Where did they go?" he demanded. His crew scrambled to recalibrate their systems, but the Iron Phoenix had vanished completely. The human ship had activated its experimental stealth system, something the Council had never encountered before. The Iron Phoenix could now move unseen through space, invisible to alien sensors and targeting systems. Captain Lee smiled as he watched the confusion on the alien ships. They were firing blindly into empty space, trying to hit a target they could not see. Their massive weapons were useless against an enemy they could not find now. "Kim," he said softly. The Iron Phoenix dropped out of stealth directly above the alien flagship, moving faster than any ship the Council had ever seen. Kim fired the first shot. A tungsten rod, accelerated to incredible speed by electromagnetic railguns, the projectile struck the alien ship before their shields could react. The Council had designed their defenses to stop energy weapons, but solid matter moving at near light speed was something completely different. The tungsten rod punched through the alien hull like it was made of paper. The first alien ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light and debris. Commander Kong watched in horror as his flagship shuddered. From the impact, half of his bridge crew was dead and his weapon systems were offline. How is this possible? He screamed at his surviving officers. No primitive species has weapons like these, but the Iron Phoenix was already moving again, disappearing into stealth before the other alien ships could target it. Captain Lee had planned this attack perfectly, using hit-and-run tactics that made the aliens' numbers meaningless. Kim fired again, and another alien ship burst into flames. The Council vessels were trying to form a defensive circle, but they could not defend against an enemy they could not see. Park pushed the engines to maximum power, allowing the Iron Phoenix to strike from impossible angles. The aliens fired their plasma cannons in desperation, but they were shooting at empty space. The Iron Phoenix would appear long enough to fire its deadly railguns, then vanish again before the enemy could respond. Yoon was busy at her communication station, intercepting alien transmissions and learning their battle plans. She could hear the panic in their voices as ship after ship fell to the mysterious human attacks. Captain, she said excitedly, I have broken their communication codes. They are trying to call for reinforcements, but they cannot explain what is happening to them. Keep monitoring their signals, Captain Lee ordered. We need to know their next move before they make it. The battle continued, with the Iron Phoenix striking like lightning from the darkness. Each attack destroyed another alien vessel or crippled their weapon systems. The Council fleet that had seemed so mighty was being torn apart by a single human ship. Commander Kong tried desperately to adapt his tactics, but nothing worked. The humans seemed to know exactly what his ships would do before he gave the orders. His crew was terrified, and some were already talking about retreat. The Iron Phoenix appeared again, this time targeting the alien weapons platforms. Kim fired a spread of railgun rounds that destroyed 3 enemy ships simultaneously. The tungsten projectiles moved so fast that the aliens could not track them until it was too late. Park reported that their experimental weapons were working perfectly. The railguns could fire continuously without overheating, and their stealth system was functioning better than anyone had hoped. As the battle raged, Captain Lee felt a grim satisfaction. The aliens had expected to crush humanity with their superior numbers and technology, but human ingenuity and determination were proving more powerful than any alien weapon. The Iron Phoenix struck again and again, each attack more devastating than the last. Kim had become incredibly skilled at targeting the weak points in alien ship designs. Her shots were so precise that she could disable enemy vessels without destroying them completely. Commander Kang realized that his fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy he could barely comprehend. The humans were not fighting like any species the Council had encountered before. They used tactics that seemed impossible and weapons that defied understanding. The alien commander tried to contact his homeworld to report what was happening, but the human ship was jamming their communications. Yoon had learned to disrupt their signals, making it impossible for them to call for help. Captain Lee watched as another alien ship exploded under their railgun fire. The Council fleet was now less than half its original size, and the surviving ships were badly damaged. The aliens who had come to conquer Earth were being defeated by the very species they had underestimated. The Iron Phoenix continued its deadly dance through space, appearing and disappearing like a ghost each time it materialized. Another alien ship would die or be crippled. The Council forces were learning that humanity was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Kim looked at her targeting displays and saw that the alien formation was beginning to collapse. The surviving ships were trying to retreat, but Captain Lee was not ready to let them escape. Not yet, he said firmly. We need to send a message that the galaxy will never forget. The Iron Phoenix prepared for its most devastating attack, yet Captain Lee knew that this battle would determine not just Earth's fate, but humanity's place in the galaxy. The aliens had come expecting easy conquest, but they were about to learn that humans would never surrender to tyranny. The war for Earth's freedom had only just begun. Captain Lee stood in the Iron Phoenix's engineering bay watching Park make final adjustments to their most secret weapon. The gravity bomb had been theoretical until 3 days ago, when Park finally solved the containment problem. Now they were about to test it in actual combat. The device was smaller than Captain Lee had expected, about the size of a baseball, but Park assured him it contained enough power to tear apart the largest ship in the galaxy. The gravity bomb would create a localized black hole that would last for exactly 3 seconds. Before collapsing, Commander Kang's damaged flagship was still drifting in space, its crew desperately trying to repair their engines and weapons. The alien commander had sent distress signals throughout the galaxy calling for immediate reinforcements. Through the viewport, Captain Lee could see more council ships arriving every hour. The alien reinforcements were forming a massive battle line that stretched across the entire star system. Soon there would be over 100 enemy vessels, all focused on destroying the Iron Phoenix. Skim looked up from her weapons station. Captain, the new alien ships are taking defensive positions. They are not making the same mistakes as the First Fleet. Their formation is much more careful. Captain Lee nodded grimly. He had expected this. The Council would learn from their defeat and adapt their tactics. The aliens were not stupid, just overconfident, and now they would be much more dangerous when intercepted. Communications from the alien fleet, and her face went pale. Captain, she said, the Council has authorized the use of planet-killer weapons. They plan to destroy Earth completely if they cannot defeat us. The news hit the crew like a physical blow. A planet-killer weapon could turn Earth into lifeless rock within minutes, killing billions of innocent people. The stakes had just become infinitely higher. We cannot let them get close to Earth, Captain Lee said firmly. We have to stop them here, no matter what it takes. Park finished his work on the gravity bomb and sealed the weapon into its launch tube. Captain, he said, this is our only chance. If the gravity bomb fails, we will not have time to build another one. The Iron Phoenix moved toward the alien fleet using its stealth system to avoid detection. Captain Lee had decided to target the largest enemy ship first, hoping to demoralize the others and break their formation. The alien vessels were spread across space in a defensive wall, with their most powerful ship at the center. The Council had learned from their earlier defeat and positioned their forces to prevent hit-and-run attacks, but Captain Lee had a plan that would overcome their new tactics. He would use the gravity bomb to create such devastation that the remaining aliens would flee in terror. The weapon had never been tested against a real target, but the theory was sound. Kim prepared the targeting systems while Park monitored the gravity bomb's containment field. The weapon was incredibly unstable and could explode at any moment, destroying the Iron Phoenix along with its target. Continued listening to alien communications and reported that the enemy fleet was preparing to advance toward Earth. The Council commanders were confident that their superior numbers would overwhelm the human ship. Captain Lee waited until the Iron Phoenix was in perfect position, then gave the order that would change everything. Fire the gravity bomb, he said quietly. The weapon launched from the Iron Phoenix and streaked toward the alien flagship, moving faster than any missile the Council had ever seen. The gravity bomb's containment field held perfectly during its flight across space. Commander Kang saw the strange projectile approaching his ship and ordered his crew to shoot it down, but their weapons could not lock onto the small, fast-moving target. The gravity bomb reached the alien flagship and detonated. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the explosion. The gravity bomb created a localized black hole that pulled everything nearby into its crushing embrace. The alien flagship's shields collapsed instantly as the laws of physics were rewritten. The massive enemy vessel began to stretch and deform as the artificial black hole tore it apart from within. Commander Kang watched in horror as his ship was twisted into impossible shapes. The hull cracked and buckled under forces that no material could withstand. For 3 seconds, the black hole consumed everything around it, including several smaller alien ships that had been too close to the flagship. Then the gravity bomb's effect ended as suddenly as it had begun. The alien flagship was gone, leaving only scattered debris and twisted metal. The other enemy ships stared in shock at the empty space where their most powerful vessel had been. The Council forces had never seen anything like the weapon that had just destroyed their flagship. Captain Lee watched the alien fleet's Reaction with satisfaction. The gravity bomb had worked perfectly, creating exactly the kind of terror he had hoped for. Half the enemy ships were already turning to flee, but the battle was not over yet. The remaining Council vessels began firing desperately at the Iron Phoenix, hoping to destroy the ship before it could use more of its terrible weapons. Kim returned fire with the railguns while Park began preparing their next surprise. The Iron Phoenix carried more than just the gravity bomb, and Captain Lee was ready to use every weapon in their arsenal. Aliens concentrated their fire on the human ship, but the Iron Phoenix's speed and stealth made it almost impossible to hit. The enemy plasma cannons were designed for long-range combat, not close-quarters fighting. Yoon activated her cyber weapon, uploading a virus into the alien communication network. The virus had been designed specifically to target Council computer systems, and it spread through their fleet like wildfire. Within minutes, the alien ships began losing power as their computer systems crashed one by one. The virus disabled their weapons targeting systems and navigation computers, leaving them helpless in space. Captain Lee smiled as he watched the enemy fleet fall apart. The cyber attack had worked even better than expected. The aliens were now defenseless against any attack. The Iron Phoenix might make the human ship emerge from stealth and began systematically destroying the disabled alien vessels. Kim fired the railguns with deadly precision while Park rerouted power to their most destructive systems. One by one, the Council ships exploded under the Iron Phoenix's assault. The aliens could not fight back because their weapons systems were completely offline. The virus had turned their advanced technology against them. Commander Kang tried desperately to regain control of his remaining ships, but the human virus was too sophisticated. It had been designed by Earth's best computer experts specifically to counter alien technology. The few alien ships that still had power began to retreat, but Captain Lee was not ready to let them escape. He wanted to send a message that would be heard throughout the galaxy. The Iron Phoenix pursued the fleeing aliens and destroyed them one by one. The human ship was faster and more maneuverable than anything the Council had ever built. As the last alien ship exploded, Captain Lee felt a surge of triumph. They had not only defeated the Council's reinforcements, but had done it with weapons the aliens could not understand or counter. Park reported that all their experimental systems had performed flawlessly. The gravity bomb had exceeded all expectations, and the cyber virus had crippled an entire fleet. Kim looked at her targeting displays and confirmed that no alien ships remained in the star system. The Council fleet had been completely destroyed or driven away. Yoon detected alien distress signals from across the galaxy. As news of the battle spread, the Council's other fleets were learning that humanity possessed weapons beyond their comprehension. Captain Lee activated the communication system and broadcast a message to the entire galaxy. This is Earth Defense Force. The message began: any species that attacks humanity will face the same fate as the Council fleet. The Iron Phoenix turned toward Earth, carrying news of another impossible victory. The small human ship had proven that innovation and determination could overcome any enemy. As they flew home, Captain Lee thought about the future. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The Council would think twice before attacking Earth, and other oppressed species might find the courage to rebel. The age of human dominance in space had begun with the most devastating military victory in galactic history. The Iron Phoenix had shown everyone that the future belonged to those brave enough to fight for it. Commander Kang's hands shook as he stared at the tactical display showing the remains of his once mighty fleet. Half of his ships were destroyed, and the others were badly damaged. The small human vessel had done what no enemy had ever accomplished before. It had turned the hunters into the hunted. The Iron Phoenix materialized again directly in front of the alien flagship, moving with impossible speed. Kim fired another railgun round that tore through the ship's armor like tissue paper. The tungsten projectile destroyed the main weapon batteries, leaving the massive vessel defenseless. Captain Lee watched the alien commander's face on the communication screen and saw fear in those black eyes. For the first time, Kang was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake in underestimating humanity. "We need to end this quickly," Captain Lee said to his crew. "The longer we fight, the more likely they are to call for reinforcements." Park was working frantically at his engineering station. "Captain," he said, "I have been monitoring their distress signals. They are trying to contact their homeworld, but our jamming is holding for now. Kim targeted another alien ship and fired her railguns with deadly precision. The enemy vessel erupted in flames as its reactor core was breached. The explosion was so bright that it lit up the entire battle area like a miniature. Sun Yun looked up from her communication station with excitement. Captain, I have discovered something important. In their transmissions, the aliens are not just panicking, they are terrified. They have never seen weapons like ours before. The Iron Phoenix vanished into stealth again, leaving the alien fleet shooting blindly at empty space. Commander Kong was screaming orders at his crew, but they were too frightened to respond effectively. Their ships were being destroyed by an enemy they could not see or understand. Captain Lee had studied the alien technology for years, and he knew exactly how to exploit their weaknesses. The Council ships were designed to fight large fleets in open space, but they were vulnerable to fast hit-and-run attacks. The Iron Phoenix was like a shark among slow-moving whales. The human ship appeared behind the alien formation, and Kim fired a full spread of railgun rounds. 6 tungsten projectiles struck 3 different ships simultaneously. The alien vessels crumpled under the impact, their hulls torn apart by the incredible kinetic energy park pushed the engines to their absolute limits, allowing the Iron Phoenix to move faster than any ship in the galaxy. The alien weapons could not track something moving at such incredible speed. Their targeting systems were designed for conventional warfare, not this lightning fast assault. Commander Kong tried to reorganize his remaining ships into a defensive formation, but Captain Lee anticipated every move. The human commander had spent years studying Council tactics, and he knew their responses better than they did. The Iron Phoenix struck again, this time targeting the alien communication arrays. Kim's shots were so precise that she could disable specific systems without destroying entire ships. The aliens were being systematically blinded and deafened by the human attack. Soon intercepted more alien transmissions and learned that some of the enemy ships were considering surrender. The Council forces had never encountered an opponent that could fight them on equal terms and win. Captain, she reported, several alien ships are requesting permission to withdraw from battle. They are afraid of our weapons and do not want to let them be afraid. Captain Lee replied, their fear will spread throughout the galaxy and other species will learn that the Council can be defeated. The Iron Phoenix appeared above the alien flagship again, but this time Captain Lee had a different plan. Instead of firing immediately, he activated the communication system and spoke directly to Commander Kong. Your fleet is beaten, he said calmly. Surrender now, and your surviving ships will be allowed to leave. Commander Kong's response was filled with rage and desperation. Impossible, he screamed. No primitive species can defeat the Council. We have conquered 47 worlds, and we will conquer yours. Then you will share the fate of your ships. Captain Lee replied coldly. Kim fired the railguns again, but this time she targeted the alien flagship's engines instead of its weapons. The tungsten rounds struck with devastating effect, crippling the massive vessel and leaving it drifting helplessly in space. The remaining alien ships began to panic as they realized their flagship was disabled. Some tried to flee while others attempted to mount a desperate counterattack. But the Iron Phoenix was already moving again, striking from a new angle. Park reported that all their experimental systems were functioning perfectly. The stealth technology was holding up under combat conditions, and their weapons were performing better than anyone had hoped. Captain Lee felt a surge of pride in his crew and his ship. They had taken humanity's most advanced technology and turned it into a weapon that could challenge the galaxy's greatest military force. The Iron Phoenix continued its deadly assault, appearing and disappearing like a phantom of death. Each attack destroyed another alien vessel or crippled their ability to fight. The Council fleet was being systematically dismantled by superior human tactics. Commander Kong watched helplessly as his ships were destroyed one by one. His crew was in full panic, and some were already abandoning their posts. The mighty Council fleet that had conquered dozens of worlds was being defeated by a single human ship. Kim looked at her targeting display and saw that only a few alien vessels remained operational. The enemy formation had completely collapsed, and the surviving ships were trying to escape. Should we pursue them, Captain? She asked. Captain Lee considered the question carefully. He could destroy the remaining ships, but that might not serve his purpose. He needed some aliens to survive so they could spread the word about humanity's power. Let them go, he decided. They will carry news of this battle back to their leaders. The galaxy needs to know that humanity will not be conquered. The Iron Phoenix emerged from stealth one final time, and Captain Lee activated the communication system to address the fleeing aliens. Tell your council that Earth is under human protection, he said firmly. Any species that attacks us will face the same fate as your fleet. The surviving alien ships jumped to hyperspace, fleeing the battle as fast as their damaged engines could carry them. Commander Kang's flagship was left drifting in space, its crew too frightened to move. Captain Lee looked at his crew and saw exhaustion mixed with triumph in their faces. They had achieved something that seemed impossible. They had defeated the Council's finest fleet and saved Earth from conquest, but he knew this was only the beginning. The aliens would return with larger fleets and more advanced weapons. Humanity would need to prepare for an even greater battle. The Iron Phoenix turned toward Earth, carrying news of their incredible victory. The small human ship had proven that courage and determination could overcome any enemy. As they flew home, Captain Lee thought about the future. The galaxy would never be the same after today. Other oppressed species would learn that the Council could be defeated, and they might find the courage to fight for their own freedom. The age of human expansion into space had begun with the greatest military victory in their history. The Iron Phoenix had shown the galaxy that humanity was ready to take its place among the stars. Park began running diagnostics on all their systems to prepare for the next battle. Kim reviewed the combat data to improve their weapons' effectiveness. Yoon continued monitoring alien communications to learn about their enemies' next moves. Captain Lee stood at his command post and looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity's greatest adventures were just beginning. The Council would return, but they would find Earth ready for them. The Iron Phoenix flew toward home, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire species. They had won the first battle, but the war for humanity's future was far from over. The news of humanity's second victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Captain Lee sat in his ready room aboard the Iron Phoenix, reading intelligence reports from Agent Cho, who had been operating deep within Council territory. The information was both encouraging and terrifying. On dozens of worlds, oppressed species were beginning to whisper about rebellion. The Council's reputation for invincibility had been shattered by a single human ship species that had been enslaved for centuries. We're starting to believe that freedom might be possible, but the Council's response was swift and brutal. Emergency sessions were called on their homeworld, and the alien leaders were furious that primitive humans had defeated their finest fleets. Twice they voted unanimously to gather every available ship for a final assault on Earth. Agent Cho's reports painted a grim picture. The Council was assembling the largest armada in galactic history. Over 300 warships from every corner of their empire were converging on a staging area near the galaxy's core. Each ship was larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever faced. Captain Lee shared the intelligence with his crew and watched their faces grow pale. The Iron Phoenix had proven that human ingenuity could overcome superior numbers, but 300 ships was beyond anything they had ever imagined. We cannot face that many ships alone, Kim said quietly. Our weapons are powerful, but we would run out of ammunition long before we could destroy them all. Park nodded grimly. Even with our speed and stealth, we cannot be everywhere at once. They will overwhelm us through sheer numbers. Captain Lee had been thinking about this problem for days, and he believed he had found a solution. We will not face them alone, he said firmly. It is time to call in some favors. Over the past week, several alien species had contacted Earth, secretly expressing their desire to break free from Council rule. Captain Lee had been building a network of potential allies across the galaxy. The first to respond was the Kree, a proud warrior race that had been conquered by the Council 50 years ago. Their ships were fast and deadly, perfect for hit-and-run attacks. The Kree commander Jin pledged 20 vessels to the cause. Next came the Tala, species of brilliant engineers whose technology rivaled the Council's own. They had been forced to build weapons for their oppressors, but now they offered to turn those same weapons against their masters. The Tau leader Ren promised 15 advanced warships. The Zul were perhaps the most unexpected allies. They were traders and merchants who had been crushed under Council taxation and regulation, their ships were not designed for war, but they knew every hidden route and secret passage in the galaxy. Captain Lee worked day and night to coordinate the growing rebellion. Yoon established secure communication channels while Park began sharing human weapons technology with their new allies. The aliens were amazed by human innovations. The gravity bomb and cyber virus were completely unknown to them, and they eagerly adapted these weapons to their own ships. Kim helped train alien crews in the new tactics as word spread. More species joined the rebellion. The Council had made enemies across the galaxy, and now those enemies were uniting under human leadership. The oppressed were finding their voice. Agent Cho reported that the Council leadership was becoming increasingly desperate. They had never faced a coordinated uprising before, and their usual tactics of intimidation were failing. The rebel alliance grew stronger, each day bringing together species that had been enemies for generations. The shared hatred of Council oppression was creating bonds that transcended old rivalries. Captain Lee found himself commanding a fleet of over 60 ships from 12 different species. Each vessel brought unique capabilities and weapons, creating a force more diverse and adaptable than anything the Council had ever seen. The human commander established a mobile command center that could coordinate attacks across multiple star systems. The Iron Phoenix became the flagship of the largest rebellion in galactic history. Park worked with alien engineers to mass-produce human weapons technology. Gravity bombs and cyber viruses were being manufactured on hidden worlds throughout the galaxy. The rebellion was arming itself with the best weapons from every species. Kim trained alien crews in combined tactics, showing them how to use their different ship types together. The fast Kree vessels would strike first, followed by the powerful, tall warships, while the nimble Zul traders provided reconnaissance. Yoon intercepted Council communications and learned that the enemy was struggling to maintain unity. Several member species were questioning whether the war against humanity was worth the cost. The rebellion's success was inspiring other movements across the galaxy. Species that had never dared to resist were now actively sabotaging Council operations. The Empire was beginning to crack under the strain. Captain Lee received a message from Earth's government granting him full authority to negotiate with alien species. The human leadership recognized that this was bigger than just defending Earth. It was about reshaping the entire galaxy. The Iron Phoenix led the rebel fleet in a series of lightning raids against Council outposts. Each victory brought more species to their cause and weakened the enemy's resolve. Agent Cho reported that the Council's massive armada was nearly ready to depart for Earth. The enemy fleet was so large that it would take days just to form up in battle formation, but Captain Lee had a plan that would turn the Council's strength against them. The Rebel Alliance would not meet the enemy in open battle. Instead, they would use guerrilla tactics to tear the armada apart. The stage was set for the greatest battle in galactic history. The Council's 300 ships would face a united rebellion that stretched across the stars. Captain Lee knew that the outcome would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of every species in the galaxy. The Iron Phoenix prepared for its greatest challenge yet, leading the rebellion against impossible odds. Captain Lee and his crew were ready to fight for the freedom of every intelligent being in the galaxy. As the rebel fleet gathered in the outer reaches of the solar system, Captain Lee felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Humanity had gone from defending their homeworld to leading a galactic revolution. The Council's armada was coming, and with it the final battle that would decide whether the galaxy would remain enslaved or finally be free. The Iron Phoenix would lead the fight, but victory would require the courage of every species that had joined their cause. Park made final preparations to the ship's systems while Kim readied their most powerful weapons. Yoon coordinated with the rebel fleet, ensuring that every ship knew its role in the coming battle. The rebellion was ready, and Captain Lee was confident that freedom would triumph over oppression. The galaxy would never be the same after the battle that was about to begin. The Iron Phoenix and its allies waited in the darkness of space, ready to face whatever the Council could throw at them. The final confrontation was approaching, and humanity would not stand alone. The Council's massive armada emerged from hyperspace like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Iron Phoenix, watching 300 enemy warships take formation in the space between Mars and Jupiter. The sight was terrifying and magnificent at the same time. Each council ship was a fortress of metal and energy, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. The alien fleet stretched across millions of kilometers of space, their combined firepower enough to burn worlds to ash. But Captain Lee was not alone. The Rebel Alliance had grown beyond his wildest dreams. Nearly 200 ships from 15 different species had answered humanity's call for freedom. The greatest fleet in galactic history was ready to fight. Commander Kang stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Eternal Dominion, staring at the mixed fleet of rebels ahead. The alien commander had been given one final chance to redeem himself by destroying the humans and their allies. The battle began with the largest space engagement in recorded history. Hundreds of ships opened fire simultaneously, turning the void between planets into a storm of energy and metal. The darkness of space was lit by weapons that burned brighter than suns. The Iron Phoenix led the rebel attack, diving straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Captain Lee had decided that the only way to win was to destroy the Council's command structure before they could coordinate their massive fleet. Kim fired the railguns with deadly precision while Park pushed the engines beyond their design limits. The Iron Phoenix moved like lightning through the enemy formation, striking targets and vanishing before the aliens could respond. The Kree warships followed close behind, their fast attack craft tearing apart Council fighters and bombers. The warrior race had waited 50 years for this moment, and they fought with desperate fury. The Tal brought their most advanced weapons to bear, launching missiles that could punch through any shield. The brilliant engineers had turned their skills toward destruction, and their technology was devastating. The Zul traders used their knowledge of space routes to appear behind enemy lines. Their ships were not built for war, but they carried human gravity bombs that could destroy the largest vessels. The battle raged across the entire star system, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Council's numerical superiority was being countered by the rebels' superior tactics and weapons. Captain Lee watched the tactical display as the two fleets crashed together like opposing storms. The Rebel Alliance was holding its own, but he knew they needed something more to achieve victory. Commander Kang tried desperately to maintain formation, but the rebel attack was too chaotic for his commanders to counter. The aliens were used to fighting organized battles, not this wild, swirling combat. The Iron Phoenix struck at the heart of the enemy fleet, targeting the Council's command ships. Kim's railguns found their marks, with surgical precision destroying the alien vessels that coordinated the massive armada. Park reported that their weapons systems were performing flawlessly, but ammunition was running low. The sustained combat was pushing every ship to its limits. Yoon monitored communications from across the battle and reported that several alien species were beginning to waver. Some council members were questioning whether the war was worth the cost. The tide began to turn as more rebel ships joined the fight. Species that had been neutral were inspired by the Alliance's courage and decided to join the battle for freedom. Captain Lee saw his chance and ordered the rebel fleet to concentrate their attack on the enemy flagship. The Eternal Dominion was the key to the Council's formation, and destroying it would break their resistance. Iron Phoenix led a desperate charge straight at the massive alien vessel, dodging through a storm of enemy fire. The human ship's speed and maneuverability allowed it to avoid the heaviest weapons. Kim targeted the alien flagship's engines while Park rerouted all power to the railguns. The Iron Phoenix needed to cripple the enemy command ship before the Council could organize an effective defense. The gravity bomb launcher was loaded with their last weapon of mass destruction. Captain Lee knew this would be their final chance to end the battle decisively. The Iron Phoenix burst through the enemy defensive line and fired its gravity bomb directly at the Eternal Dominion. The weapon struck the alien flagship and created a localized black hole that tore through the ship's hull. Commander Kang watched in horror as his vessel was twisted apart by forces beyond comprehension. The alien commander had finally learned that humanity possessed weapons that defied understanding. The destruction of the flagship sent shockwaves through the Council fleet. Many alien ships began to retreat. As their command structure collapsed, the carefully organized armada was falling apart, but the battle was far from over. The remaining Council forces rallied around their surviving commanders and launched a counterattack that pushed the rebels back The fighting became even more desperate as both sides fought for survival. Captain Lee realized that conventional tactics would not be enough to win this battle. He needed to do something that would break the enemy's will to fight completely. The Iron Phoenix accelerated toward the center of the battle, where the heaviest fighting was taking place. Captain Lee had decided to target the Council's most powerful remaining ship in single combat. The alien dreadnought was twice the size of any vessel in the rebel fleet. Its shields could withstand any weapon and its guns could destroy multiple ships with each shot, but Captain Lee had one advantage the alien commander did not expect. The Iron Phoenix had been upgraded with technology from every species in the Rebel Alliance. The human ship engaged the alien dreadnought in a deadly dance of destruction. Both vessels fired everything they had at each other while maneuvering for the perfect shot. Kim coordinated attacks from multiple weapon systems, while Park managed power distribution to keep all systems running. The Iron Phoenix was being pushed to its absolute limits. The dreadnought's shields began to weaken under the sustained assault the alien commander had never faced. Weapons like those carried by the human ship. Captain Lee saw his opportunity and ordered all remaining power to be transferred to the railguns. The Iron Phoenix fired every weapon simultaneously in a devastating alpha strike. The alien dreadnought's shields collapsed and its hull cracked under the incredible barrage. The massive vessel began to break apart as secondary explosions tore through its structure. The destruction of the dreadnought was the final blow that broke the Council's resistance. The surviving alien ships began to surrender or flee as their will to fight collapsed. Captain Lee broadcast a message to the entire galaxy declaring that the age of Council oppression was over. The Rebel Alliance had won the greatest victory in galactic history. The Iron Phoenix and its allies had proven that courage and determination could overcome any enemy. The galaxy would never be the same after this day. As the battle ended, Captain Lee looked out at the stars and saw a future filled with hope. The species of the galaxy would work together as equals rather than as conquerors, and conquered. The age of human leadership in space had begun with the most decisive military victory ever achieved. The Iron Phoenix had shown the galaxy that freedom was worth fighting for. Park began damage assessments while Kim secured the weapon systems. Yoon coordinated with the rebel fleet to establish a new galactic government based on cooperation rather than domination. The Council's reign of terror was over, replaced by an alliance of free species working together among the stars. The galaxy had been transformed by the courage of one human ship and its crew. Captain Lee stood on his bridge and smiled as he watched the dawn of a new age. The Iron Phoenix had carried humanity from a single world to leadership of the entire galaxy. The future belonged to those brave enough to fight for it, and humanity had proven they deserved their place among the stars.